So then this is our first of we're calling it under the covers because as high performance coaches, a lot of times as we lead our clients through the sessions, the idea is to kind of cover what is going on underneath, right? What they're actually feeling, all kinds of the overwhelm, the exhaustion, the frustration, all the stuff that our clients usually tend to come to us with, we are trying to peel the layers and explore what's going on for them. So you and I always have a nice banter. We go back and forth and we kind of go deep and we go all over the place. And we thought, hey, why don't we just do this live? We just have our banter live and you never know who it might serve. So that's what that's the deal. We're just gonna free flow and talk about that. And we picked today the topic of overwhelm to see where how we think it's showing up for people. We don't point out to our clients this is what is going on for you. A lot of times it's exploration and discovery, right? So talk to me. Like, what do you think is really happening when our clients are talking to us, or even friends at this point in time? People we know when they're telling us immediately, we're like, this might be what's going on for them. That's why they're feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll share a story. I actually got off a call with a client right before this. And I would say right now in this day and age and stuff that's happening around the world right now, and obviously it's going to depend on people's context and life situation, but many people are overwhelmed and the way it shows up. So, for example, on average, a client would come in and then I usually ask them what are they excited about, and you can pretty much tell what's happening internally when they start talking. And usually it shows up as you can tell they're kind of constricted and their tonality is very low. The energy is low in the tonality. You can tell the emotions on the face too. And usually when they're talking really fast. They're saying a bunch of stuff and it's not fully coherent. Those are signs that there's overwhelm. And why does overwhelm show up? Well, overwhelm shows up when we kind of lose control of our own system. As much as people think that, oh, it's because of my job, it's because of my business, it's because of people around me, it's not. We're taking in all that information, going into our mind, and our mind is turning it into this kind of rolls around in our thoughts and our emotions and our beliefs, and then we turn it into this anticipation of what could go wrong. Mm-hmm. And when our system is anticipating something going wrong, fear comes in. We have this powerful mechanism within our body that's called fight or flight or fight, freeze, flight response. That means a lot of your energy goes into your muscles. And it was funny, one of my clients was sharing, is like, when I go into that state, it's like my wife is watching me. I go from one place to another place. I go from kitchen to living room. And she's like, what are you doing? Yeah. Because your body has a lot of energy because it goes into your muscles and needs to release that. It needs to do something. It's like an animal coming towards you. You need to either protect yourself or you need to fight it. The problem is that there is no physical danger. And that system that helped us survive, it does not help us in the environment we're in because most of the dangers are in our mind, in our consciousness. We're making shit up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and the one thing that, like, as you're saying that, you said this a few times, you hit on it, because I'm thinking about, like, we teach five main principles, especially, right, in the core, the fundamentals of how we become high performers or how we have high performing lives. And you said energy a few times, and it really is about how we manage our energy at the end of the day. It's like mismanagement of energy, which eventually makes us lose perspective, and then it manifests in physiological ways as well. Like you said, if you're pacing up and down and you don't know why you're pacing up and down, it's almost like if you brought presence to that moment, you'd be like, wait a sec, why am I pacing up and down? And then bringing really like kind of breathing, coming to the present. A lot of that stuff has to do with the way that we manage our energy, because I think that at the end of the day, like you said, there's a lot going on in the world right now that would cause us to feel overwhelmed or just totally exacerbated. But I think it really is that. Like, a lot of times it's like this culmination of everything, and then the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. We think it's that. Oh my God, my colleagues are driving me crazy, but it's building up. It's building up, right? And so it really is so important to kind of like get in touch with what is going on a consistent basis, managing that energy on a consistent basis so that we can actually manage the overwhelm. I don't think we can avoid overwhelm per se. What do you think about that? Is an overwhelm avoidable in this current state of the world?
Well, it depends how you're looking at it. So when I look at overwhelm, it is a shift in energy inside of us. It's when we're talking about overwhelm, it's an emotion. And first of all, like there are some basic foundations that need to be understood here, which means that so a lot of people have all kinds of meanings when it comes to emotion, especially men in general. It's a generalization, but in general, men might be disconnected from their emotions. It's the same thing could happen to women as well, to other people as well. But in general, if you have spent a good part of your life, if you've been taught since childhood to shove down those emotions, which means that whenever you feel scared or sad or upset, you are not acknowledging it inside of yourself. You're not noticing it. So what ends up happening is that it starts to build up over time. And when circumstances get more and more challenging, we don't know how to process that, then it becomes a regular part of us. So in those circumstances, you can't manage overwhelm because you're talking about dealing with years and years of conditioning.
Mm.
And so the beginning process is to actually acknowledge and know that you have a system within yourself. And if I were to kind of explain emotions in simple terms and biological terms, because that makes more sense to people, is that it's a biochemical reaction inside your body. It's not a concept. It's as a human being, you're an emotional being. You're not a mental being. You experience life through the reactions in your system, and we label it as emotions. So, as an example, and it's interesting because, for example, many people who push down their emotion, they're aware of the other spectrum of it. They're just not aware of the spectrum that they think it shows up as weakness. So here's what it looks like. So for example, it doesn't matter what emotional level you're in, how aware you are, you know what excitement is because you've gotten excited. Because that's an easier emotion to process, right? You get excited, you feel happy, great. Happiness. A lot of people generally know about that. Now, as soon as you go to the other side of the spectrum, such as go to sadness, people may be like, yeah, okay, yeah, I feel sad. Then you go towards anger. A lot of people are aware of anger. Then you slowly start to go towards hurt and pain. And you go towards this sense of disconnection, fear. That's where people start to they're like, okay, what the hell is that? I don't feel that. I don't feel fear. I'm strong. The problem is that you haven't actually looked at what it is and how much it's driving your behavior. And so in simple context, so when you're feeling excited, there are certain biochemical reactions that's happening in your body that's telling you, it's information that's sending you that things are good. Things are good. When you're feeling overwhelmed, it's just another set of information telling you something is off. And if we don't acknowledge that, you can't deal with it. If you haven't acknowledged it for a long time, you're building something up. And it has a lot of consequences.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny because some of the emotion that you just said, excitement and happiness and stuff like that, that is we're encouraged to be that. We live in a society that really, especially in North America, that really pushes that. Everything is about how awesome our life, or at least if we're trying to portray, it's everything is high five when it comes to that. But being afraid and being fearful, being uncomfortable, those are things that it's like man up, it's like, suck it up kind of thing, tight upper lip, whatever, wherever in the world we come from, we're encouraged. We've been kind of conditioned, I think, over time to not really acknowledge those things. So we don't know how to deal with them as adults when everything is thrown at us. And I think it's fascinating because, and this is really, I feel like this is the power of like self-exploration, self-examination, coaching, therapy, all of these modalities that enable us to look inward because then, and it takes a long time. I'll be honest with you, like for me, it's not until recently where I've actually embraced the idea of just kind of sitting with the discomfort because I have a tool set that I will go to the moment I'm like, oh my God, I could do this, I could meditate, let me just work out, but I'm actually these days making a concerted effort to kind of just sit with it and kind of let it dissipate, and then a space opens up and I'm like, wait a second, okay, this is cool. And then I'm starting to see the pattern, but it takes a long time to do that, to get there on your own, if ever. But then I think as we work with people who've kind of walked this path, or we read, books that kind of lead us through this in any which way, I think it's like the looking inward and being able to reflect and embracing every emotion, whether it's happiness or sadness or whatever, is just very human. And kind of like, to kind of go back to what you're saying, is like, the fight, flight, freeze, that is like the instinctual reaction. Isn't it a shame, like in adulthood, we're still kind of like going for the instinctual reactions, like because we just never knew how to deal with those, darker, so to speak, um, emotions that we're not encouraged to embrace or process.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Like I work mostly with business owners and investors, and I want to kind of bring it into real life situations because it's not, we're not just talking about old stuff. It's good to have to deal with these things. Well, it shows up in your business. It shows up in the day-to-day stuff that's happening, and it impacts it in very negative ways. So here's what happens. So you're somebody who's running multiple businesses. You're sitting there, and you're sitting in your office, and you have obviously your overhead, the bills to pay, you have employees to take care of, you have multiple businesses running, you have your family in the background. All this stuff takes bandwidth inside your system. It takes up energy, which means that the more energy that stuff takes, the less energy you have to make decisions. And as a business owner, or as anybody, a human being who's dealing with a lot of stuff, you need to make multiple decisions in a day. Those decisions might be related to projects. Those decisions might be related to investments that you're making. Those decisions might be related to your relationship challenges you're dealing with. So if you can imagine yourself like you have this, imagine yourself filled with this water in a sense, or this fluid, and that's your decision-making capability in the morning that you start. So before you even get started, you have all this stuff running in the background, and your subconscious, you're getting overwhelmed, which means that that's your energy being taken up by all that stuff. So it's getting drained, 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 drained. By the time you start your day, you have this a little bit of energy left, and you use that to make a couple of decisions in your businesses. By the time middle of the day hits, you don't have a lot left. That's where impatience sets in. That's where you start to get triggered by multiple things. And then by the time you get home to your family, you got nothing left.
Yeah.
So we're not just talking about random things here. This is and this is a very common thing what most people deal with. It means that when impatience is showing up, when lack of presence is showing up, you can't be there mentally and emotionally with your family. You can't actually be. You're not listening to your team members. You're not listening to your employees. You're not trying to see the challenges. You're not looking at you're trying to make decisions that are more conscious in your business, but you're not able to focus.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is how most people cope with it. The way we cope with it is we'll go smoke. That's part of the reason. The way we cope with it, we'll go through reels, or we go through our phone constantly.
Right.
We all do it. I do it too. So I'm not saying nobody have gone over it, but it depends how much you're doing that stuff. We cope with those things because it's uncomfortable, like Erina said. It's the discomfort. So we'll do other things. So once we finish our work, or let's say the end of the week hits, what do? We go drink. We want to spend time with people constantly, not because we enjoy spending time with people, but because we can't think about this shit anymore. So this stuff takes up stuff. And to make it even worse is that if you're somebody who's running a business, multiple businesses, or a job, family, multiple things, you need a lot of bandwidth to make better decisions. Conscious decisions, not the way Erina said, reactive decisions based on that fight, freeze, flight response, but decisions based on our prefrontal cortex, the part of your mind that allows you consciousness, that allows you to make creative decisions. So the part of your mind that allows you to come up with solutions for your business, for the people around you.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do that if you're stuck in that reactionary mode. So I just wanted to ground it to what people actually deal with in their day-to-day life.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. And I'm even going to venture to say, I remember being in university and being so stressed out, Like imagine the transition from just being in high school and just focusing only on work. I had a bit of part-time job, so well, but then you go into university, suddenly, I had a car and new friends, and I went to class and show up or no show up, nobody, my parents didn't know. So I was just like, and that was overwhelming. Too much freedom in and of itself for me was overwhelming. So I really feel like it doesn't really matter what part of our lives I think we're in. I think it's so important to actually be able to connect with what's going on, to teach from the jump, from the get-go to children. I think it is just conditioning, isn't it? Like, and that's what we're trying to do. It doesn't really matter. We can fix this at any given time, but it's about bringing the awareness, right? So when we are, when we reach the end of the day, like when I call it like energy leak, from the moment we get up, if we don't have some kind of routine to kind of center us, we're leaking already because we're bringing in from the stuff from the night over, from the week over, the stresses and things like that. And then it's downhill. So we don't really even set ourselves up, for the day. So it's almost like really, how do we actually connect with it when this happens? I think it's inevitable, as we said, like from the day-to-day life, there's a lot of demands on us, and that's all right. However, it's almost like, well, how do you navigate in this world when there's when you're feeling this feeling of like tightness? I think, Faisal, I think a lot of people, at least for me, it took me a long time to stay in my body to even sense that that is what's happening. What do you think about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, so and maybe we can transition towards like what are some possible solutions, and that's what we're highlighting. Like what we've been kind of talking about is that the first step is to actually even acknowledge that there is an overwhelm, which means that it might show up as you might feel it in parts of your body. It might feel like a constriction or pressure in different parts of your body. It might be in your head or in your chest or in your gut, and you might feel tension all around you. Just acknowledging that can do a lot. And then one of the simplest things you can do, like day to day, just take a survey of what's happening in your system and just notice what's happening. And then you can start to go towards, okay, what are the possible solutions? The solutions are actually much simpler than people think. It could just be sitting with that discomfort and breathing through it. And on average, we know, and we've done enough research to know that on average, most human beings can process uncomfortable emotions in 2 minutes. Now, depending on how many you've stacked on over the years, this might be a very longer process. And maybe you need support. You need somebody to work through it with you. And this is where, like, it depends where you are. We can't tell just talking to you here at what level you are. Maybe you're in a place where you've kind of pushed down emotions for a long time in your life. And if you feel it's so overbearing, maybe you need therapy. Maybe it's important for you to get that support. Maybe you need a support group. But let's say you're not in that situation. Maybe you're just dealing with day-to-day challenges. Maybe it's just a matter of breathing through it. Maybe it's a matter of physically taking care of yourself, exercising a little bit. That can help a lot.
Yeah.
Those are just two simple things.
I mean, and it really is interesting because I think to think about overwhelm is overwhelming in and of itself. But you're right. I mean, I think that once we connect with the fact that I am overwhelmed, there's any number of things that we can do actually to connect with it, and then decide what the next step of action is. So whether we decide to sit with it because we're like, I just want to deal with this once and for all. What is the deal, right? And that comes, I feel like, after we've developed some level of comfort with being uncomfortable. I think a lot of times we are overwhelmed because we're running away. Like we're running away from a lot of things. Therefore, first step I would say is like, okay, I'm uncomfortable. Let's see what's most accessible to me. So as you're saying this, I keep thinking about this is so the energy session in so many ways. We come back to the energy, and I'm thinking about the energy checklist. If for nothing else, to kind of like the moment we connect with that, it's almost like, oh my God, maybe I just need to get up. I've been sitting at my desk way too long, and I'm just kind of in the weeds now. Forget it. And somebody comes, to your desk and they ask you for something, and you want to bite their head off, or and there are so many things that we can manage. Movement is a big deal. Breathing is a big deal, and and they're all accessible to us. It's just, again, bringing that mindness to it and saying, hey, you know what, like, I'm just not feeling good at the moment. Let me go for a walk. So I think, yeah, there are just so many really. I feel like the most difficult part of it is like to really connect with the fact and say, hey, I honor this. I need to kind of look at this right now. And I feel like that's where a lot of people struggle the most. But I think we've given some ideas in terms of when it is uncomfortable, let's say, or you're feeling the opposite of what you normally would want to feel. Then find out how you can access that. What do I do? Do I do movement? Do I just kind of walk around? Do I talk to somebody? Therapy is a big deal. Coaching is a big deal. Confidants, friendships, those are a big deal. It's about having a support system as well. I think overwhelm as well has a lot to do with a sense of, I need help, man, like so reaching out, having the courage to ask for that as well, I think is a big aspect of navigating with the load that we all feel like we have on top of us.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to share a quick story before we end this, and all those things. I love what you said, Erina, that there are a few things that need to be in place. First, you need to be aware. Second, you need to have your support structure, whatever that looks like, whether those are friends, confidants, therapist, coach, or maybe a combination of those. And then third would be, like I would say, the third would be start educating yourself on this stuff. Part of it is that as you listen to us, we're giving you some clues as to what's happening. We'll go deeper and deeper as we do this because we're planning to do this. Is it every couple of weeks?
We're gonna do it bi-weekly, and then
Bi-weekly, yeah.
the idea is to serve, to have fun, to
Yeah,
banter. We don't need to do this just on the phone or WhatsApp or
yeah,
whatever. So we just brought it
yeah.
here. Yeah, carry on.
And we'd love to hear your questions around, like, we want to talk about topics around overwhelm, around how you can create more joy, how you can create more success in your life, how you can build better teams, how you can create more abundance in your life. We can talk about any of those areas. And what I was saying is that educate yourself. Start picking up books. You don't have to read them. You can listen. Now, a lot of people have access to audiobooks nowadays. Like, this is a great book.
Good.
Crazy Good. It's an amazing book by Steve Chandler, one of my favorite coaches. It's like I literally read it on the way to Denver last week, and then on the way, like I read it on the plane, half of it, the other half on the way back. It was just an incredible book. Start educating yourself about how our physiology works, how our mind works, how our thoughts work, because I can tell you most of what you understand or not even think about is affecting you. We cannot afford to live in and we're in a world where we can't afford to live in ignorance. There's more than enough information, more than enough insights, more than enough ways to educate yourself, and then we can help you refine the process as we go through these videos. So I encourage you to do that. I want to share a quick story. So here's what happened. So actually, I was speaking at an event last week in Denver, and there was a moment where I was offering a program and I didn't know how to communicate that. And the best way I know how to communicate is to be real. And I had a vulnerable story, and I know that that's what people connect with. And I know it was going to be an emotional story. And it was around how the first time my mentor believing in me. And I know it's going to be a moment where I might lose control of my emotions. And that's a scary moment for me. And as I started sharing it, I even said that it's going to be a vulnerable story. I'll share it because I want you guys to understand the impact of something like this, a coaching program. So as I'm sharing it, I can feel it's kind of, and especially for a man in front of an audience, it's a difficult process to, I'm getting emotional. And my tears start coming out. And my normal reaction in the past would have been to, no, shove that down. And I didn't do that. A big part of it is because I've been working on this for a long time. What I did do is allow the emotions to be. And this is me in front of stage. I was literally walking back and forth slowly. I was aware of my physiology. I wasn't running around. That could have happened. I'm walking slowly back and forth, and there's a pause for a good 1 minute. And while that's happening, and I can tell people's faces, they're just focused on me. And the passive would be that, oh my God, work through this. Everybody's watching. Shove it down. No, I just kept breathing and I kept walking. Took about a minute. Then I came back. Then I shared the rest of the story. And I could tell a few people, you could tell they were feeling it. And that didn't discredit me as a leader. That didn't discredit me as a coach. In fact, they felt more connected afterwards. Many of them came up to me. It's like, thank you for sharing. That felt really amazing. The fact that you're vulnerable, I have a struggle in that area, and a few people that signed up, they had struggle in that same area of vulnerability, which was very interesting to me. Now, in the past, I would have run away from something like that because I wasn't comfortable with it. I didn't know if I could handle it. And so I wanted to share with you is that the strength that it gives you to deal with this stuff. Now, I've had to work on this for a long time, but the strength that it gives you, it makes you a leader. It makes you want to support people in a better way. You stop being scared of your emotions because all it is information in your system. It's giving you something in that moment that was very important to me, so I needed to share it. So I felt it strongly about it. And because I allowed it, other people felt it too. Now, if I shoved it down, I would have looked like I'm tricking people in some odd way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it is. It's so interesting. Like being our authentic self is just really is again being out of it, right? And I think to reconnect with that and actually to allow people to see that where we are taught to be kind of strong and kind of like, especially you're on a stage. So that's a beautiful story because what happens is when people see you doing that, it's giving permission for them to access that part of themselves as well, which I think is attractive. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the people that are most influential, in fact, are the people that let us know that they have it together and they don't have to get it together at the same time. We're all a work in progress. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's just like the front that, whether it's man or women, or I don't know. I want having lived in different countries and societies, I feel like it could be cultural as well, but stronger in some places than others. But I really feel like we are groomed out of. Here's another amazing book that I like, speaking of how we show up for ourselves and reconnecting with the self, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I
Love
love,
that.
remember that book? Yeah, I love that book because it kind of like, we're trying to recondition ourselves in the way that we want to be conditioned. We've been conditioned out of it by, again, well-meaning people or society or whatever. And I think it's really reconnecting back. And it's just like that is the biggest flex out there, I think, to be able to kind of reconnect with ourselves and to be ourselves. And so what if people judge? So what, But more likely than not, a lot of people are actually going to connect with you and they're going to feel like, oh my God, okay, good. I could do this too. So thank you for that. I think let's wrap it up. One thing, both of us, I'm going to give something and then I'm going to ask you to give something that, that is actually tactical, people could actually do. Or we challenge them, right? In coaching, we're always like, I challenge you to take this on. So let's leave our little live here with a challenge that we give. So I challenge uh, uh, everybody, really, including myself, is in order to actually really connect with what's going on with myself and to manage overwhelm, I'm consciously trying to do less or curate the things that are really important to me and do those. So I would say that. I would say, yeah, work on that. Work on curating what is in your life and being okay with kind of like not doing everything. What would you say yours?
I love that. And I would say, I think there's this expression that I've heard for a long time and it really made sense to me much later is that the truth will set you free. But what they didn't complete in that statement was that your truth will set you free. So what I would challenge everybody to do is just take a survey of what's happening inside of you. Take a survey of what you're feeling throughout the week. Just check in multiple times a day, set alarms. Check in, what do I feel in this moment? That will tell you more than what anybody else could possibly tell you about your life, because that determines, like, if you're consistently in a state of fear, overwhelm, disconnection, that's information for you to act on. If you don't know that, you could listen to all sorts of information, great or otherwise, it won't do anything for you. Your own truth will set you free because and it will tell you what you need to do. Your own system is much more wiser than other people around you, including us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my challenge is to do a survey the whole week, consistently
Awesome.
multiple times.
I love that. And the funny thing is that you're saying that I'm like, okay, yeah, we could talk about courage. Because I mean, I'm thinking about like what needs to feed in. Because I mean, we kind of do this all day, every day, and we're still work in progress and things. And 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 as we are kind of laying down these challenges or kind of throwing down these challenges, I also don't want to overwhelm uh, everybody with the challenges that we're throwing as well. So it's almost like this is the idea. As we're talking about these things, we're going to give some foundational things that need to be in place anyway. So lovely talking to you, Faisal. We'll link up, offline, and we'll plan the next one and pick a topic, or maybe if the viewers want to, give us some ideas. But this was amazing.
It
Uh,
was. It was fun. Please share your thoughts, your suggestions. Like this, share it with anybody in your network, and we will continue this in 2 weeks, same time.
all right, ta ta for now. Bye,
Take care,
everybody.
guys. Bye.
Bye.